Hi, I'm Rodman Philbrick, and this is my book, Zane and the Hurricane. First question is, why Katrina? Well, originally I was going to write about a hurricane that had struck here in Florida, which is where I live for about half the year. And then I put it off and I put it off. And when Katrina devastated New Orleans and I saw what had happened during the storm and after the storm, which was even more important, I decided that that was a much bigger story, and that's the one I wanted to write about. And because I'm not a native of New Orleans, I come from the Northeast up in New England, I decided I needed to do a lot of research. Now, fortunately, there was plenty of newspaper reporting in the local newspaper, wonderful stories about what happened to individuals. There was a couple of journalists who wrote great books about this storm, and I read them with avid interest. And then there was many videos and a couple of movies made which showed not only the actual storm hitting the city, but the reactions of some of the people and what they experienced. And I took all of that information and tried to form it into a background for a story about a boy from New Hampshire who also doesn't know the city, but who finds himself in New Orleans just as the hurricane strikes, and he and his dog have to survive the utter devastation of a great American city. Another question I've been asked is, why do I write books for kids when I actually wrote books for adults for much of my career, 10 or 15 years. I wrote suspense novels and thrillers. And then I just happened to come across a story that happened almost in my backyard of a couple of kids. And they were very different and very courageous in their own way. And they inspired me to write a book called Freak the Mighty. And since then, I've tried to concentrate on writing books for younger readers and found that I enjoy doing that even more than I do writing books for adults. The other question was, although there are many difficult scenes in this novel, many exciting scenes too, I hope. So the question was, what was the most difficult part of the story for me? And I would have to say I have a wonderful character, or I think she's a wonderful person anyways, named Malvina, who wants to grow up and be a stand-up comedian. And her situation, although it's made much worse by the storm, of course, started before the storm, and it's with her mother, who is an addict, trying desperately to get off the drugs. And Malvina, who's only 10 or 12 years old, has to deal with that. She has to kind of grow up early. So that may be the most difficult situation in the story. Do I have any advice for young writers? Well, I think maybe the most important thing, aside from writing, which you probably should try to do a little bit of every day, is to learn to observe the world and the people who live in it, and to listen to them. Because that's your job, is to be an observer and to record things that happen in the real world, even though you're putting your own interpretation on it. And if you do learn to be a listener, just to be quiet and listen as people tell their stories, it's astonishing what they will tell you and what you might be able to use when you turn it into fiction or nonfiction later on. So I'd say the best advice is to sit back and start listening. And also, don't forget to keep reading. It improves the brain.